Zelda has a great open world. You wanted to talk about open worlds, Jordan.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk. This is actually a topic I've had written down on my phone forever. I've been wanting to talk about the evolution of open worlds in video games, and of course, um, none of us have played Zelda yet, but Dom and I have been playing Horizon. Of course, Jared's played plenty of open world games, and we'll kind of mix in that conversation. Um, I think that so far, 6 hours in to Horizon, it's a beautiful, beautiful open world. I think it's the best looking open world game ever, and I think it's definitely pushing in the right direction. I don't think it's completely evolutionary or revolutionary. I do think that it is, people talk a lot about open world fatigue, and I definitely feel like I have that at this point. And starting up Horizon, I felt like I could still feel it. It wasn't just cleansing me of that, but I do think it is a step in the right direction. Also, I just got the art book today. It just came out for Horizon. And just looking, I barely peeked at it because I really didn't want to spoil myself on any of the parts of the game I hadn't come to yet. But just seeing the concept art, that's some of my open world concept art is some of my favorite concept art because it's different. A lot of concept art is like just showing the characters and how they're like interacting with each other, but open world concept art shows how the character interacts with the world in such a unique way, and usually has the artist themselves rendering these gorgeous backgrounds to properly demonstrate the world that they're trying to build in this game. So I just wanted to give that a little shout out. Also, side tangent here, the art book just came out today, a couple days after the game. That's okay. The strategy guide for Horizon doesn't come out until the 14th of March.
They want you going in on your own.
What the fuck, dude? Usually, and like the Mass Effect strategy guide, that comes out the day of the game. Most strategy guides I get come out the day of the game. I don't know what the hell's going on. That's just a weird thing. I'm just like, I feel like I'll be far enough into the game at that point I might not even need it. I don't know. Anyways, evolution of open world. So yeah, I just wanted to basically pose this question. Like I said, I don't feel like Horizon necessarily reinvents a wheel. What I'm looking forward in this conversation is looking towards the future. What do we think we're going to start seeing in open worlds? I have some ideas that I'm going to put in, but I want you to go ahead and start off.
So my biggest idea and my biggest problem with open world games. So I like open world games a lot, but I am starting to feel that fatigue to a certain extent. I do tend to like the open area games more, the Tomb Raiders, the Mass Effects, the Dragon Ages, where it's these big areas, but they're not like a big wide open world, right? I think the biggest evolution to open world games moving forward is not making the map larger and larger, but I think keeping the map where it is or maybe shrinking it down even a little bit and making it denser. I think that's the biggest issue with open world games, that people feel that the worlds are empty. Like, there's so much space, but there isn't a lot of things taking up that space.
Denser and more intricate.
Yeah, exactly. I think making, a big topic of discussion when it came to The Witcher 3 was that the side quests actually felt, like they were...
Wow, I actually give a shit.
Yeah. BioWare said that, CD Projekt Red's Witcher 3 was a huge inspiration for Andromeda, and instead of having all of these rudimentary side missions, that they wanted to make the side missions actually feel like something worth completing and not just filler. And I think that's a big thing with open world, is I think just making it, they need to make it more dense, because you can make your maps bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's great. But I think when you can create better experiences if you focus less on making the maps bigger and just making everything inside that line more interesting and more intricate.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
But I got to say real quick, and I've heard this story about Mass Effect, the people working on Mass Effect mentioning, the influence from The Witcher and giving them the props for making side quests that actually matter. But I got to say, The Witcher obviously took a big step, and a lot of people were really surprised and taken aback by that in the industry. But I definitely feel like they got that from BioWare games. I feel like BioWare was making Yeah, I feel they were iterating on Bioware because Bioware was already making those strides and getting to that point. Now, where I'm at in Mass Effect 2, the side quests aren't, just they're not necessarily anything to write home about, but they're definitely better than the average cut. So
the character ones are mostly pretty damn
all the
good.
companion loyalty missions, hell yeah.
Those are great.
Those I think are actually technically part of the main...
optional. They're optional.
But,
I can't talk about
do
why.
them.
Yeah.
Just make sure you do them, all of them, though, Jordan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dom.
What do you think is going to be the next, like, where do open world games need to go to either get rid of fatigue or just, come up with something new and refreshing? And
what is the evolution?
Yeah.
I don't know that it's necessarily density, because even in Witcher 3, you would get worn out on that after a while. That certainly helps, because, there are a lot of games that are just empty.
And real quick, I'm not talking about density in the number of missions and stuff. I'm just talking about the attention to detail.
Stuff.
Like making the world
so
you not have to interact with everything, but making the towns feel more lived in, making things just look more intricate, Not
for me, I think
them,
it is. For me, I think it is less of the word denser or detailed, and it's more intricate.
Yeah.
I think the more intricate that open worlds become, that's really going to push them. But go ahead, Dom. I don't want to get too far into it.
Yeah, no, and I don't really have a great answer, I guess. What part of me wants to say, like, I would like more things that go towards the way of Dark Souls, where everything is interconnected in that kind of way. That approach, that's not going to work for every kind of game. That's not really going to work for Horizon, where, you just go down one elevator and all of a sudden you're back at the beginning of the game, after 20 hours of trekking out. So that's not necessarily going to work for a lot of games. To me, the only thing I can put pinpoint with Horizon is that just the setting and the story and the characters and everything going on is just something so new and fresh, and that's what makes it most interesting, because it's not, the gameplay, all the stuff, it's not revolutionary. Like, every single bit of Horizon, functionally has been done by other games. Right?
Yeah, the bow and arrow feels exactly like Tomb Raider.
Right. So all that I've done before. So you would think you'd get fatigued on it, but it's just because how many other books, movies, or anything have I consumed that have to do with this weird primitive tribe of people and robot dinosaurs and
a primitive future. Yeah.
Exactly. And this weird religion that I don't want to say too much about, but it's damn interesting, and all this stuff about the setting and the way it's set up is what makes it what is making it interesting to me, and that's kind of motivating the exploration and the lack of fatigue, going through the same gameplay that we're used to.
I think setting is actually, you brought up a really good point there. Setting is a huge part of open world, because for me personally, one of the only reasons that I don't play Fallout games, or I shouldn't say that, one of the biggest reasons I don't play Fallout games, besides the fact that I don't like how Bethesda makes broke-ass games, is the open world that exists in a wasteland, and I think that setting is just, kind of sucks me dry, and I just don't want to get involved with it, and it's not gripping to me in the same way.
On the other side, though, in general, the wastelands are kind of played out, but what makes those games, good is that it's a wasteland in Washington, D.C.
In an area,
the Washington Monument.
Yeah.
In Boston.
I do like that
there's
part
a town
of it. Yeah.
in Fenway Park. That's what makes that interesting. But you're right about the wasteland starting to get played out in general.
Yeah.
That's why I think
setting...
Cyberpunk's going to be huge, man. Sorry to interrupt you, but we don't really... Deus Ex was trying to be that Cyberpunk game that hit with a major audience, and I obviously didn't do that, evident by its sales and stuff like that. But I think CD Projekt Red knows how to make games, and I think when we see that game unveiled at E3 when its final state, and you see if there's going to be a game that's going to be more intricate, it's going to be a CD Projekt Red game that takes place, and we're assuming a city, right, a very dense city, and I think that's going to be intriguing to a lot of people, because we're Far Cry Primal is kind of like Horizon in some sense, obviously not one-to-one, and we do have these fantasy-esque things, but a future a future-based hyper technology cyberpunk game, I think is something that would be refreshing, and I really can't wait for that game.
So I just want to go ahead and call this now. It is March 2nd, 2017. Cyberpunk.
One day before Zelda.
before the equilibrium. So Cyberpunk is about to be fucking gigantic because we have tons of Cyberpunk movies coming out. We've got Ghost in the Shell this month. We've got Blade Runner 2049 later this year. We've got Cyberpunk video games coming out with Deus Ex came out last year, then Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out. Cyberpunk's about to be the next big genre. I'm just feeling it. And so, yeah, I think we're going to get I think we're going to get plenty of stuff like that. But anyways, back to the open world stuff. Talking about the setting, I think is huge. Also, real quick, I want to say this about Horizon. I'm starting to maybe think that it isn't futuristic. I'm starting to think that it actually does. No, but I don't even. But we're at the same part in the game. It's not like I know any more than you. I'm just thinking like maybe it actually is in the past, and it's kind of a story about how time is a loop or time is a circle, and things keep happening over and over the same way, kind of deal. So yeah, that's just one of my side theories. But anyways, one of my things is, as you mentioned, Jared, the intricacy. I think that's big in the future of open world games. I think, when we had Ian Hink from Easy Allies on the show, he and I were talking about AI in games getting a lot more realistic and how much more that could hook you into the world of a game. And if an AI is, responding to you based on your own responses as the player, like you could either type them in or speak them in, I don't know, but you're not just picking responses that the developers made up. You're actually, interacting with an AI within the video game, an NPC, and then they're correctly reacting to you based on how you handle the situation. I think that would be really cool. Based on their
personality, right? Like what they were.
Right.
Like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
And based on, you may be 35, you may be 75% into the game, and you've had all these experiences with this AI character, and so you build up the that whole situation. So yeah, I think that could lead to a big step in intricacy for open world games. I think honestly 4K is going to do a lot for open world games, because think about this. People talk about, oh, well, games already look so good, I don't need them to look better or whatever, but there's a big difference in what DICE can do with a Battlefield or a Battlefront game versus what CD Projekt or even Guerrilla can do with an open world game. Because like a Battlefield game, they're not open world, they're not, they're really just these smaller levels.
Contained. Yeah.
They're contained, they're linear, they're whatever, and you're really able to focus and pinpoint and make everything look a lot crisper. But now with 4K, dude, I'm telling you, playing on the Pro with this 4K TV, like, Horizon looks incredible down to the smallest detail, and the world is so big, it's astonishing. It's really a feat in human achievement. Like, it's crazy how intricate they've been able to make this vast virtual world. And so I think that's going to help a lot too. Of course, processing power. Now, Jared, you talked about things actually getting smaller, and I think that's actually not, that might be the more beneficial way for us as gamers, but I'm not necessarily sure that's the way it's going to go. I'm starting to think that, and this has actually started happening, I think we're going to start getting what I call, in my head, ultra open worlds. And those are like, so basically The Witcher did this, and Dragon Age did this back in 2014. But it's like how The Witcher and Dragon Age have like separated open worlds, right? So there's like Skellige, and there's Novigrad, and there's multiple different places in The Witcher, and you can bounce between the different spots, but you have to fast travel. You can't just like walk from one place to the next, right? Well, Dragon Age is the same way, and I'm sure there's other open worlds that are the same way. And so yeah, I think you'll start having almost like individual open worlds, things that would have been equal to the size of one open world game 10 years ago. There will be like several of those within the open world, and that's really what The Witcher is when you think about it. Like, it's several open worlds, attached together. And so I think you're going to start having these ultra open worlds where, EA is going to come out with a $120 game, but you'll be able to play it for 1,000 hours and still not see all the content. And you don't have to, right? You don't have to play it that much. I mean, if you got 500 hours out of a game, you're telling me you didn't get $120 worth. You're seeing all new content, all new worlds, all new game mechanics. I mean, I think that's something we could really start seeing in the future. People were talking about charging $100 for The Witcher.
Yeah, Square Enix, The Avengers would be awesome if it was like that. And each
Think
world,
about that, dude.
Yeah.
Think about that. That's the perfect... Jared, you just made a huge connection. So for the open worlds I just described, Marvel would be perfect because you could have all these fucking superheroes, and there's an X-Men open world, and there's a Fantastic Four open world, and an Avengers open world, and all this different shit,
The only problem with that specific example is they'd rather sell those as separate games and make more money on them.
Yeah, but for the Avengers...
I don't know. I mean, you could, for something like that, you could actually sell it for like $100 base price, and then you want to add the X-Men, you want to add the Fantastic Four. Those are expansion packs.
Yeah,
think about this: like if you release a game like that, that's the Avengers. Designing an open world to work with somebody playing as Iron Man is completely different than designing an open world to work with somebody as the Hulk. So, like, imagine if you have a game like that where it is open multi-world and, one world is based purely around you playing as Iron Man and the mechanics of that. And maybe they can work that around so it works as maybe a different hero, like Spider-Man or something, That'd be cool.
That's kind of like
crazy.
That's a more core fundamental problem with cinematic universes in general, right?
True. I definitely think you're going to see this. I think you're going to see this type of stuff start happening. I think games are going to get bigger in that sense, and I think it really wouldn't surprise me if we started seeing like just some giant open world games that it costs like $100, but EA or Activision is like, guys, you're going to love how much content is in there, and people will dig it.
Yeah, I think open world has people, though it is fatiguing, and we've seen a lot of open world can offer. I think there is a lot of innovation to be made. Going back to the buzzword of the episode.
Why I think we have so much of that fatigue though is because of the fact that we do have so many open worlds that aren't filled with really quality content. I mean, Mad Max and Just Cause, and like I can just throw out game after game after game after game that is an open world and that just doesn't have very much content that's fun. That's really, that's what people talk about with Ubisoft all the time. You just kind of get in the groove of the game, and then you just rinse and repeat until you finish the game like 30 hours later.
Yeah, the open world is there to be a time sink, not necessarily there to be a world, and I think that's a huge issue.